much and welcome to joining us today at Be Women Weekly webinars to connect, to learn, to share in these very challenging moments to understand what is it really important to us. Because in these moments of isolation, we can really consider them as unique opportunities for reimagining our future as individuals, as professionals, as a global citizens. I'm Laura Giadorou, Koch, founder of Be Women and lawyer of the state of New York and Argentina, passionate about using business as a force for good. So the webinar today is about Family Forum, a must skill to stay connected together in these challenging times. Dr. Amir Kfir, CEO of Amirror and co-author of NONFLICT, The Art of Everyday Peacemaking. Another webinar we'll have in a few days. So imagine if we can have these forums that have been created over 40, 50 years ago by an organization called YPO, and now for business leaders, and now it's actually adapted to families. Imagine if families can be the source of communication, of clear understanding. That would be an amazing change for the world. So Amir, thank you for joining us today. He, for more than 30 years, is an organizational consultant and manager of change leader that regularly visits 40 countries to teach top management groups and forum around the world. He has been commissioned by YPO, a Young President Organization, to develop and run successful chapter developments and resources. So he's kind of the creator of this movement of Family Forum for the World. Thank you, Amir, for this. A few seconds more about Be Women. Who are we? We are a global network of women entrepreneurs that seek to balance purpose and profits in the markets. What we want to look is to move towards the caring economy, where the economic system is which genuinely cares for people and nature as our top priority, where our values, respect, dignity, collaboration are our driving forces. A few seconds more about our Be Women Empowering pose so that you're all energized. So move your shoulders back, chin up, your eyes that twinkle with joy and determination, and with a super wide smile that illuminates everybody around you. Amir, the line is all yours.
Laura, thank you. And thank you guys for making this happen. I'm excited about this thing. I'm probably, from all the things that I do and I've been doing over the years, the application of forum in family is something that I find that gives me a sense of purpose more than anything else, a sense of a direction of where you can make an impact at something that is so valuable for us, because probably most of what happens to us in life is a derivative of what happens to us in the family where we grow up. Most of the stories that people have to share about their life, most of the challenges that we're stuck with in life, to a large extent are a result of something that happened in the place that we grew up and how we interpret what happened there and what behaviors we developed in order to create an environment of safety and love for us. So our ability to do reverse engineering and to come back into the family and to modify the experience that our children are going to have there by applying a process that has been proven over again and again for hundreds of thousands of people over the years, to vouch and to say that this thing that is called forum is the most valuable thing they got out of their membership in YPO and EO and in many other organizations where people figured out that coming together and having a conversation with a kind of protocol will make a difference. And the purpose of this conversation is to teach you, to the extent that you can teach in this time, what that protocol is and to excite you to use it. We're going to actually throw you into these groups, which is this amazing thing with Zoom, that you will have an experience of going through this. But before that, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Amir, married to Sarana, who is somewhere around here in our house. In the last 30 years, I've traveled on an average of 180 days a year around the world. For the last month and a half, I'm at home. And like many of you, I'm having a great time. If there's nobody sick, we're actually really enjoying it. What a wonderful fresh air of slowing down for a moment and thinking about life and enjoying the small things of family and connection, which is exactly why this conversation is so relevant at this point in time. We're here to talk about what are we learning from this experience that actually becomes the leverage of what we want to do with our life. I want to thank Laura for hosting me and making this happen, which is not a coincidence because Laura has already been in my life in a few junctures as a force that makes things happen with love and determination. And by the way, with the ability to tell you right in your face what we call tough love, exactly what she thinks about what you're doing. And in a way, straighten you up and sort of like shape you up. But when you think about that, actually, that's what a mother does, needs to slap you left and right from time to time when you're getting too full of yourself, too braggy. And I really thank you for that. And I think you're modeling something that is about what motherhood is all about. I'm also very happy to see Steve here. Steve is my partner in this journey from 2012 in bringing NONFLICT. And when we wrote the book, and the appendix of the book, we said, NONFLICT is about learning how to resolve conflicts. But what we really want to talk about, and that should be the next chapter, is how do you deal with conflicts before they become explosive? When they become explosive, you really need a whole art and sometimes third-party intervention. But if you're able to learn how to deal with them in a proactive way by creating a conversation that on a regular basis talks about what's going on, there's a higher probability that we will be able to deal with conflicts before they get far out. Not only that, but we say in the book that the style of our conflict is very much a derivative of what we saw in the house where we grew up. We either mimic what we saw or we have a counter reaction to what we saw in the house where we grew up. And so we behave in a certain way that is dysfunctional one way or another. Our ability to create a protocol of a conversation that will eliminate that nature of conflict resolution could actually allow us to raise kids that will have a choice how they're going to deal with issues in their life. This is why what we're going to do this afternoon, which is really the tip of the iceberg of tasting this thing, is so incredible, and I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited about Be Women, because I'm strong in my belief that women have the power of integration. People, when you look at families, you see that very often the women plays a pivotal role of creating the unity of the system. I know in my family, if the kids want a solution to a problem, they'll call my wife or they'll send her a WhatsApp, actually, not so much calling anymore, right? And if I will answer the phone, they'll say, hey, Dad, can you hang me mom? Sort of like, how are you? Can I talk to mom? And that would be the place where the problems will get solved. So I'm a real believer that women have a natural tendency. They are the central force. When I grew up as a child, when I came back from school, my mom was waiting for me in the kitchen with schnitzel and chips and a conversation about how was your day before she went and took her nap. I knew that she was there. She was the central force of my life. When Yardena dumped me or broke up, God forbid she's going to hear it now, she'll use that word, and I felt very miserable, it was my mom that I sat and talked to. It was my mom that I could express my emotional situation. So building an organization that is about a power of women, but women who are driven and making a difference in this world is a great combination. And I think that talk that we're going to have right now is about that combination of both heart and mind and changing the family in order to change the world. I'm married for the last 32 years. I've got two kids, Ronnie, who's 28, my daughter, and Gil, my son, who is 23, who now lives with us, which is a great experience to be here at home. But unfortunately, my daughter cannot be with us, which is a painful experience. And that's part of what maybe some of you are going through these days with the situation that we're living. In this talk, what I want to talk to you about is how this looks like, this process that we're going to do. Why? To put it in context, I've been involved with an organization called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. Some of you here on the call are connected to this organization, so you know a lot about it. So I'll just be brief to say, it is a gathering of people that come together, and that's how it started fundamentally, to come together and to deal with the issues in our life. to be able to talk to someone because we need to be able to get some feedback from other people. And the conversation was under a construct of total confidentiality because people spoke truly openly about what they're going to experience. And in that setting, they shared openly what's going on for them, what are the things that are working, what are the things that are not working for them, and got some really valuable input from other people that was given in the form of sharing experience and not giving advice. The same protocol that thousands and hundreds of thousands of people over the years have said to be the most valuable thing that they've gotten out of that experience is what I would like to expose to you right now. So I'm going to put my PowerPoint, but hopefully I'll see your faces and your engagement. If you have question at any point in time in the experience, please write them in the chat. Either I or Sasha, who is working with me, who will support me, as well as Laura, will see it so that we respond to it. I don't have an agenda that I need to go through in the most strict way, although we have a goal to get you into a subgroup in order to work and practice the process. So if you have a burning question, let it come up so that we have a spontaneous discussion. At the end of this session, you will also hear what would be the next steps of what you can do with this. The tools that we want to give you so that you will be able to actually run it with your family, as well as any other later on support, because the end game of all this is for you not only to understand the concept, but to be excited about checking it out with your family and playing this game, this protocol of conversation with your family. First, me maybe the moderator, but over time, let others, including the kids, be the moderators, the one who will run this meeting. So I'm sharing my screen here for us to go through this. This is the agenda. This is what we want to do. Now, at this point, do you see me or am I lost from your screen completely? And you only see, can you see me? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, because I want to make sure, you know that you can actually push the slide a little bit more to the side, to the left, if you put your cursor on the line between the faces and the PowerPoint. If you want to make it smaller, so that you have more visibility to the larger group. So here we're going to talk about what is Forum, why do we use Forum, what are the guiding principles that will make it happen. We'll have an overview of the process so we will understand how it goes, and you have in your material everything, including the checklist of how you run this meeting. And then we'll do a group exercise that will take you through it. And then we'll talk about how we do a family retreat. We'll answer your questions, and we'll come together with what the next steps could be for you in running this thing. So a forum is fundamentally a group of people that take care of each other. In a YPO setting, it's people that are very mindful about what is it that you need, what is the issue that you want to work on, and we appear. Well, that's exactly what a family is. It's a group of people that take care of each other. Obviously, in every key juncture in your life, who would be there if not your family members? And the nature of that is a loving, caring relationship. In this process, people have an opportunity to hear things from each other that they don't hear otherwise because we stop and we have this meeting. Most families used to have rituals like going to church or going to temple, and religion actually had a fundamental role in bringing us together. For many of us, that is not any longer there in this way. For many, still it is. But there needs to be something that brings us together on a regular basis. This is the place for us to talk very openly and very deeply about issues, talking about the things that are working well, that we're very proud of, that others listen, but also ask ourselves, what are the challenges that are holding us back from being happy about our life? The things that are, as someone said to me, I only worry about either breaking heart or breaking bones. Anything else is transitional. But even those issues, to be able to feel that it's a safe place to come and talk about. The way that we respond to each other in this protocol is that we don't tell each other what to do. We share. And this is very important for us as parents. Often for young kids, very young, we tell them. But as they grow up, the more we tell them, the more resistant they become. I've noticed this when I was playing with my son and sitting with him. There was a movie that we used to see together. I think it was called something about a horse, Spirit. I'm not remember exactly the name right now. We saw that movie probably over 20 times. And we cried again together and we sang it together. It was an amazing connection between us. There was never a point where you felt like that's too much, because a story with kids could be told over and over again. But when we start telling them, they become more resistant. So are we, by the way. The same thing happens in an adult forum, in YPO, CEOs, business forums. People are not liking when people tell them what to do because it creates what is called a psychological one-up. You know better than me. But they love hearing this story. And we are reinforcing each other by telling you what we see in you that is a force that you have. This quote, I think, says a lot about what family represents for us. And I think it's intuitive for all of us. Why would you need to do it? One, because you want to strengthen the family as a unit. It is the most significant part of our life. Two is because we want to make sure that we take care of each other. And the way that we do this is by setting an example of how we talk. We learn how to converse in a way that is very effective. It's very important for us as families to hear things in real time. Often the kids, when we come back from school and you ask them how you're doing, they're saying fine. That's not an answer. You're getting a lot of information around. How do we solicit more input? How do we hear more? How do we become more attentive to get more information from our kids? By creating a space that I can actually share in a larger scope when they have their time on the clock. This is the amount of time that you're talking, and we go around and everybody's sharing around. In doing so, we create a bonding between the most significant relationship in life. If we think about that, the longest relationship in our life is the relationship that we have with our siblings. And if that relationship is working, that is fantastic. If that relationship is not working, we will find a lot of miserable families. I've met families that have fought over $10,000 and didn't talk with each other for years. But when those relationships work, and I remember for my parents, they've had the conflicts between each other, but if there was one thing that was very strong for both of them, is about keeping the family together. And I remember that my dad, when he was at the last days of his life, we went over to his place, the three of us, my sister, who was the eldest, my brother, and myself. And he was sitting on a sort of like a sofa, a couch, or a chair, like a reclining chair. And so my brother said, let's put him in bed. My sister said, leave him there. He's more comfortable there. He says, no, let's get him. He's not comfortable sitting for so many hours. He opens his eyes and he says, please don't fight. I think in this moment, but overall, that there's nothing that we would imagine to be more troubling for us, that when we raise our kids, that at one point they start fighting with each other and they don't talk. That feels, I think, for us like a big failure in life. No money will compensate for that sensation. If they have an amazing relationship, and I'm very privileged from time to time when I drive around in the car and I look at my kids in the back seat of the car and they're sitting, leaning on each other, playing with each other, I melt. I don't think that anything makes me melt more than seeing the beauty of the relationship and the love that exists between them and the mutual support that they have between them. That needs to be facilitated when they're very young. That's the place to start for that to happen. And we need to learn to manage conflict in a proactive way. Because when that happens, and I don't think there's any family that doesn't have conflict. Two people that agree on everything, one of them is unnecessary, we say in humor. Obviously, people are different. What makes a strong family is actually, like any team, by the way, is united differences. But the question is, can they resolve conflicts in a proactive way? And the book that Steve and I wrote is called NONFLICT. It doesn't say no conflict or not conflict. NONFLICT means how do you shift conflict through a process of co-creation into non-flict. And Steve will be talking with you next week, I believe, or soon after, and explain to you this process and teach how to use non-flict. I strongly urge you to attend that, because I believe that's a simple skill set that is easy to apply and changes fundamentally many of the relationships in our life. I talked about the idea about sharing stories, the importance of telling, rather sharing versus telling, and the ability to develop the skill set with our kids in many family business to work together. They might be owners and not managers, or they might be managers. And when it comes to being able to manage a business entity, learning to co-create that together and the skills of learning that relationship at a young age is absolutely fundamental. By the way, people ask, how old and how young can you have? I'll talk about it later, but I will say that as long as you are part of the system, I was in Berlin running an event. They told me, I have a baby and I'm breastfeeding. I said, then bring the baby along. The baby is learning through assimilation, so being there around. They're starting to figure out what does it mean to have a family conversation where there's turns and going around. And when you're heard and when you feel validated, this is very powerful. Here are some of the guiding principles to make that happen. The first thing is that it's absolutely confidential, which means that anything that we say in this process, in this group, needs to stay there. In the YPO or EO kind of forums where I'm a member of, the rule is that if you breach confidentiality, you're out. What does it mean? I know that I can say things here. I can trust you. That this is a safe place, that when we come into the family and we say things, you're not going to use it against me. You're not going to share this outside of the family. Even if it could be that the grandparents, whom I very much encourage, especially today, to be part of this process, but if they're not, I don't go out and tell about things that I, the child, said in this family, and I feel that my trust has been compromised. And we need to agree what that means and when things can go out of the circle of the family. But this is a key component for making this happen. I need to know that I can truly expose myself. When that happens, people are willing to be committing. And commitment in the family means that we sit together, that we are totally present, and that we have a commitment for the well-being of each other. We appear there when you need us. One of the important things for that to happen is a sense of empathy. Empathy means that you can be in my shoes. And for that to happen, you need to know that the other person is patient enough to listen to you fully and to be able to reflect back to you the essence of what they heard you to say from a place of deep empathy. I know how it feels to be where you are, and I care for you. And again, Steve will be teaching you this shortly. For a conversation to be real, and you will experience it today, you need to be vulnerable. If you appear like everything is under control and you are refusing to share the true challenges in your life, the probability that things will happen in the conversation is very low. That means that you need to be authentic. And teaching ourselves and our kids to be authentic is a very important skill in life, and for a skill to have a true quality of life that you can be yourself. You don't have to wear a mask. The more you are allowing yourself to be yourself, you're connected to your true power. And that is something that the family is a place to reinforce so that our kids can truly bring themselves to its fullest. For that to happen, there needs to be a process that is structured. There's a certain discipline, there's a protocol, there's a step-by-step. It's not a haphazard, let's get together and talk, which is an organic, flowing, fantastic conversation to have, but this is a different conversation. It is not a substitute to all the conversations. But you need to have that, and you need to have it on a regular schedule so that we know, often twice a month, this is the time where we sit together for a couple of hours and we are having our family forum. And we are all guiding it. The kids could be the people that are guiding the conversation as they learn to do this process. And the leadership of that is moving through rotation as long as we all understand why are we doing it? What is our shared vision? When, bi-monthly, sometimes weekly, and then it's important to do a retreat where the whole family goes away for a few days and has a subject of what we are talking about, and we'll talk about family retreats later on. The parents are there, the children are there in that process, and I strongly believe that it would be fantastic if we can have the grandchildren there, the grandparents there. I found it very interesting that when the grandparents are there, sometimes the kids understand, especially as they grow up, why their parents behave with them the way they do. Because they're mimicking what they saw in the place where they grew up. But the beauty is that grandparents can bring a perspective of wisdom that doesn't always sit there when the family is with parents and the kids. And grandparents have a powerful healing position because they're not trying to educate, they're trying to do something that is much longer term, and they use love as a major force of influence. I believe that today the grandparents who are sitting in isolation away, if they had the ability to engage into these conversations, and with the tools of Zoom that we're using, they would be able to make an impact in the life of the kids. I've seen it again and again. I've worked with family businesses that brought 3 generations into the equation. Sometimes it wasn't even the grandparents. Sometimes it was the aunt that had the ability to speak to your child in a way that changed their behavior because they didn't have that fight and resistance with the authority of the parent. If you say white, I say black. And all of a sudden, somebody says, hey, querido, why are you fighting me? Let go. Let's work together through this thing. My sister has had a very important role when we went together on vacations and the conversations she had with my kids, because I love her and she knows what's important for me. She was able to facilitate the most difficult discussions. That is priceless. I think it was Hillary Clinton, but I don't know where she quoted someone else that says that it takes a village to raise a child. So the expansion of that circle can be much broader. This is the process. It's very simple, very straightforward. We open up our meeting usually with a communication starter. First, we need to check that everybody is okay with the meeting, that there's no conflicts that we need to talk about before, or some major crisis in your life that would postpone any process. We need to know that you're able to be present, that you're good to start the meeting. When we start the meeting, we do a communication starter. It's a question that we all answer. It's about 1.5 minutes of an answering. The question could be something like a teacher in school that you really loved and why. A first loving relationship. A day in your life that you would love to live again and why. Of course, if you were an animal, what animal would you be and why? And depending on the age of the kids, the questions, and the kids can come up with them. And there are many cards with questions, and you'll see from the material that we'll give you, there are long lists of potential questions that they themselves, these icebreakers, could be a fantastic thing to do even around dinner when you don't want to continue the conversation beyond. And just say, let's do a round of icebreakers. And once the kids get it, they love it. They love it. They love playing it. They love leading it. They come up with different things. And it doesn't always have to be a question. It could be mimic an animal or play something that brings an energy of playfulness so it doesn't feel too heavy. Then each and every one of us goes to a process of introspection and we share what's going on in our life. And the categories that we share is me, what's happening with me. I'll click a video in a minute so you'll see that and it will be explained, because I want you to see that there's a tool that we created that has each step of the process as an agenda that you follow, and embedded in it is videos that explain each part of the methodology. So I made sure that you can take that and use it with your family already as an educational tool that will run the process with your family. So once each and every one of us did our introspection, we go through self-coaching. It's called NONFLICT coaching, which is a logical process of asking 3 steps. What is the issue? What's going on for you? What do you want to see happening? What's blocking it? What you need to do? That will allow you to talk to the family then in a very coherent way and come to the essence of the meeting. Step number 4, the deep dive and the sharing of the family. That's where we do the work. That's where we really make an impact, and we do the process, and then we close. This is this step of introspection. I'd like you to see it to get a feel for the tool and the explanation. What does it mean to talk about these things? If I'm in a family setting and I'm reflecting about what's going on in my life, and what we called once update, better to call introspection, because I'm the client of that in a way. I talk about what's happening for me, my school, my friends, what's happening in us as a family, and what is happening in work if I'm working. In each and every one of those dimensions, there are things that I'm very happy for. Those are the roses, and there are some thrones. And I need to be able to feel that it's time to talk about both. As we become aware. Oops, sorry. If I'm in a family setting and I'm reflecting, I talk about what's happening for me, my school, my... Sorry, I keep touching it. And if I'm in a family, to talk about both. As we become aware about what's happening with each other, we feel connected with each other, but we're also able to apply some level of support on what is really the thing that is most valuable for me to work on. If you have questions, please post them so that we will be able to respond in real time rather than just going through the whole thing without you responding. This is the process that is the non-flict process that Steve will train you on. 3 simple steps. After you pose what your issue is, we want to make sure that we understand the issue. In this case, it's a conflict between 2 people, but it could be a conflict in yourself. Understand what is your reality, and then co-create a solution. I'm just putting it up there. We will not go deeply into this right now, since you have a presentation on it.
Amir, I can say that Steve's webinar is on the 30th of April, so it's next week. So I invite people at the same time as this one.
Very good. So before we dive into the experience, we talked about why do it, how does it work, when do you do it. I would like to take you into actually practicing doing this thing and going through this kind of a conversation. I want to share with you before a story that will put this in context of what does it mean to share rather than to tell each other what to do. I'm running an event where I had 18 families somewhere in Africa sitting in circles of huddle of the family just chairs. And one of the girls in that circle is telling in her family, as I pass by, I hear the story that she's been bullied by another girl in school that is calling her names, and she's 8 years old and she's insulting her and she's crying. The father stands up and he says, "Don't you take it. You go to the principal and you..." I put a hand on his shoulder and I say, hang on for a moment. Please share with her. Where did you learn this? Why are you saying what you just said? He sits down, he catches his breath, and he said, when I was a child, just about your age, I remember I used to come to school, and there was a kid that used to come to me every day and says, "Give me your lunch money. Give me your lunch money or I'll break your bones." And every day for months, I gave him my lunch money. I felt so humiliated, I looked bad at myself, my inability to stand for, And then he says, one day, as he came to me, I got up and I said, no more, you're not doing it again. So the guy said, okay, and went away. As the daughter hears the story, she's looking at her dad and they both have tears in their eyes. And they're realizing the similarity of the situation, but that actually the solution that the dad said earlier about going to the principal and what he ended up doing, standing for himself, was much more powerful. And something happened there in the connection between them, something that is about sharing rather than telling, and being there for your child by sharing an example. I've seen many examples of this happening again and again. So what is it that we want to do? We're going to pair into groups of 3. And you're going to go into a small group where you will each share for a minute what is an issue that you're facing right now in your life, a challenge that you have right now in your life. And I need to see how many we are. I just want to look at the chat for a moment.
Yeah, in the chat, there's a great question. Whenever you have 5 kids that are young, how do you time that everybody has a space to speak? You say here 1 minute. Can you give us examples, specific examples of giving turns to each other?
So in the process, we use a clock. We say that to hear what's going on in your life, in the mature adult organization setting, is about 5 minutes per person. In a family, I saw that even 3 could be enough. What does it mean? I look at my life and I say, what's going on for me personally, right? If I had to give an update now to you about what's going on for me, I would say, First of all, being at home, as I said earlier, is fantastic. But I've also found that I do every morning both meditation and yoga. I've never had the time to that. I rushed. And I'm having a great conversation and relationship with my wife. I used to come in and go out, and now all of a sudden we're spending a lot of time together, which is a really pleasant experience. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing my daughter because she's not here. And I also feel like her response to me on the WhatsApp message isn't as fast as I would like to get a response, which frustrates me. Maybe there's a life that she has that is separate, but I would have expected to have a better kind of communication with each other. Which my wife says, by the way, relax about that. Maybe you're not communicating in a way that provokes a dialogue. You're asking these generic questions. So I need to learn how to communicate better in this situation. From a work point of view, I've got some big challenges because the world is changing. I used to get on a plane and fly around the world. Now I do most of my work with Zoom through this computer. So there's a learning curve. But I'm also realizing some huge opportunities in this respect because there's so much that can happen using this tool by having direct dialogue with people, face to face, looking at each other, and being able to also do what we're going to do right now, which is build small groups very quickly that will engage. Each one talks for their measured time. There's a clock. If we say 3 minutes, after 2.5 minutes, we give you a half a minute warning. After 3 minutes, the clock is ringing. Finish up. Next. An important skill of a fair equality. You have your space. Don't feel interrupted. Nobody's rushing you. Finish up what you have to say. Learn to say it within a measured amount of time. We're all the same. We're all equals. That is very powerful for a family. I'm being asked here by Robert to explain the difference between sharing versus telling. When I share, I'm talking about myself, my experience. I'm not saying that I know what's right for you. When I tell, I'm guiding you on what you need to do. I'm giving you almost direct instructions about what's right for you to do as if I know. And that is very dangerous because if you come with an issue to any group and people are telling you what to do, they're creating what is called psychologically a one-up. I know better than you what's right for you, and that doesn't work well for people. That will cause people to close up because every time that somebody opens in this group, people sound to be smarter than that person. Conclusion, don't talk openly. But if you share an experience by saying, let me tell you something that happened to me, a relevant story, but not for the purpose of now going into my story, but being able to go and to say, here's an experience that happened to me a few years ago. And this is what I did, and it didn't work. You don't have to be always heroic. It's only when I realize that if I don't change myself, nothing will change, and I will choose to be a victim. And I change my own behavior, lo and behold, something changed. The person is listening and hearing one story and one conclusion in relevance to the challenge that they're posing in front of us. Then another person and another person. Guess what? It's like a kaleidoscope of 5 or 6 different ways of looking at the issue that is very, very powerful for people to experience. Okay. What we're going to go now is into these breakout groups. We will be 3 of you in each group. And in these groups, you will have on the side the protocol that was just presented, where you will each, for a minute, be able, we have 39 participants, that's 13 rooms, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. 3 participants room. And here you are in the different rooms. I don't know if you see this in front of you, the structure of the breakout, but in a minute I'm going to press a button and you're going to end up being in these rooms. You will be in them for 18 minutes. In those 18 minutes, 1 minute of sharing one issue in your life that you're facing right now in your family. So it could be personal, family, friends, work, one issue that you have in your life. 1 minute per person. And then you as a group will choose which is the issue that you think you should work on. Once you've done that, you will then start allowing the person to talk for approximately another 5 minutes to tell you more about the issue. What is really going on there? What is happening? Maybe some things that are working well. What are you afraid of? What are you hoping for? What's blocking you from getting there? 5 minutes, you talk. And then the group will respond, the two other people. If you want to get really sophisticated and you have the energy and the talent for that, if one person in the group says, I have an issue, let's say, with my husband, you might want to say, can you please be my husband? And in their sharing, they might share from the perspective of the husband. This is advanced family constellation, light. If you're ready for that and you've had such an experience, you might be blown away by what will be said by people who will play a role. You might want even to ask the other person there in that three to be you, and they might tell you something that is the you that you might not be aware of. What we're offering is a perspective. This is a feedback that people might have. The way that the people can respond is either they tell you, hey, I know how you feel. They'll convey an emotion. They'll say, I've experienced fear. Let me tell you, when this and this happened in my life, I had a period where I was very fearful. So you get a sense of empathy. They might share by sharing an experience, like I said before. They might share by giving you a perspective you haven't thought about, by asking you a thought-provoking question. And they might share, and this is very valuable, by telling you something that they see about you that is very powerful. We call it a power reminder. And they'll remind you of a power that exists within you that could be extremely valuable for you in dealing with the issue at hand. At the end, you'll say, here's what I'm taking from you guys, and here's what I'm going to do. Before you start working, sign together with a thumbs up a contract of confidentiality that what will be said in this small group that you're going to be in will always stay there. Before going into these groups for 18 minutes,
Thumbs up, everybody.
do we understand the process? Are we clear about what we're doing? I'm looking at the chat to see quickly if there's anything that I need to be aware of. Are you emailing, recording, later issues? Sarah, Maria, Sasha, any questions for me before we go? Anything that you want to ask before we go in?
Amir,
Yes.
so I shared in the chat, everyone, if you go up above the emails, a link to the slide that Amir showed before with the instructions on it. So if you click on that link and you put it in your browser, you should be able to see the timings of the exercise that we're about to do. I'll put it again, so it's...
Are we good to go? Elena, yes, do you want to ask something?
No, sorry, because I switched on my camera just now because I was...
Wonderful, we wanted to see you the whole time. I felt something was missing.
No, I was just working, I'm sorry.
Ready to go to the rooms?
Yes.
Here we
Thank
go.
you very much.
You have to press join to go there.
Okay, where should I?
Elena, on the screen it says join.
But where? I can't find John.
Don't worry, it will take you. Just press the join on the bottom of the... You see that there's a screen there that says join?
No, I can see you and another person, Patricia Moreno, without audio. It's just me, you, and her.
So
Where,
you probably came, Elena, you probably... I'm going to put you into a room. Hang on. I'm going to assign you...
I'm sorry.
Into room number 1. You're in a room now, say now join. Yes, sir. Hi.
Hi, Amir. It's just the two of us in the webinar.
Who's this? Tell me your name. I'm looking you up here.
Hi, my name is Mabel. I'm in
I'm going to
Ecuador.
throw you into a group, Mabel, just to get a feeling for it. Are you ready to dive?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Okay. We're over the time. Should we close them or?
We left ours because it said the time ran out.
Yeah, I know. So I have the option of closing all rooms now.
Yeah, I think you should.
We're covered. Good. Hello. Close all rooms. How did it go, Virginia? Were you in a group? You're muted.
Hello, Amir. How are you?
I'm good.
Amir, this is Ravi.
How are you, Ravi?
Very good. I came to Israel, remember? From
Yes,
EO,
I do.
Hyderabad.
I do. Unfortunately, it doesn't say Ravi. It says Galaxy Note 9. Maybe you want to rename yourself.
I will do that. Sure. Thanks.
Very well. Virginia,
Fantastic session. I really enjoyed it.
good. I'm happy to hear.
Yes, I was
Laura.
in my session with Ravi.
Okay.
It went very well.
You had an expert with you. That's good.
Yes.
Yes. So people are coming back. Laura, comments?
We had a great session. We had a few people come in and out during the session.
That's because I threw all these people that came late to you because I knew that you would be able to take them in.
Oh, okay, that's why it was. Okay, because we kept repeating a little bit again and again the session
For that.
it was really great, and we went through the most important thing is when you get together with a group is confidentiality, number one. And second is to put what is the 4 or 5 steps we're going to take, no? And so we started with the word, the energy word. I think it's very important.
There are a lot of friendly faces here of people that I know forum well, and this is fantastic. And people that have been experiencing it and that have been doing it in their life in a serious way. That would make you leaders in your community because you can be the teachers of this thing. It's very simple to adopt it. And once you have the protocol, what we've created for you is like a checklist that you just go step by step. It's like, you know, when the pilots are in the airplane, the analogy, that's where I picked it, that I saw that they have this simple checklist. And then you just do, first you do that, and then you do that, and then you do that, and then you're at the end of the meeting. And the most important thing is people come with their heart and with their sense of trust. So before I go into the next phase, which is talking about the notion of retreats and how to do a family retreat, I just want to make sure that there's no questions unanswered. Please unmute yourself and throw your questions into the bucket if you need to get a quick answer. Or if you have a word of wisdom that you want to share, like Robert.
No words. I have questions today. Steve and I were in a very nice exchange of thought, and we're just getting to the point. So within YPO now, there's 2 approaches when you get to this thing. That's the 4-step approach, which most have been trained in, that you used to train, and now it's a non-flict approach, and they're parallel and they're not parallel. So if you talk about conflict, I can imagine in our wonderful international organization, there might be some conflict on, so what are we going to adopt? In some groups, they promote the non-flict, and some groups says, no, should stay with the 4 steps. So I just like to, without getting into a conflict at all, it's just the fact that people are old and wise enough to select.
Robert, if you've noticed, there are 4 ways that people can respond. One is, I can tell you, hey, brother, I know how you feel. Let me tell you, I felt what you felt. I know how it feels to be in your shoes. That's actually the 4th step. That's the ability to go into the river with you. The second way that people can respond is by telling you, I've actually remembered in my life a time where this is what happened. So I'm sharing an experience, and that is valid. Sometimes questions are brilliant, Robert. A good thought-provoking question. There was a guy in a forum that I was running not long ago, and he was talking about divorcing, and he was talking about a lot of things, but it seemed that he was very confused. So one of the people asked him, if money was not the issue, what would you do? That's a great thought-provoking question. And it helped the person look at the issue. And the most valuable thing that we can tell people is what we see in that is very powerful. So the 4th step is embedded in this methodology and is one of the 4 ways that people can respond. I call it a fruit salad, which means some people can decide to respond by doing one part of the process and other people can do another. Different people have talents. I've worked with a lot of British people that I found to be brilliant at asking thought-provoking questions. I've worked with people that I found that are brilliant at really connecting at an emotional level. I would like us to have a menu of options for people to respond. And in that way, I believe that what is happening in YPO will come to this place again at one point or another. And it will merge. For now, since this is not a YPO platform, this would be good enough for us to do.
Okay, thank you so much. Toda rabba.
Bevakasha. Other questions, please.
Maybe you can really talk about, very briefly, expand what confidentiality means. Because this is so important to build trust.
Thank you, Laura.
Because it's different between a forum in YPO and a forum in a family. And how to maintain confidentiality?
It's a very valuable question, and it is not as simplistic as we think. Confidentiality in the surface in the universe of YPO means 3 things, we say. Nothing, which means you cannot decide from the things that I said in the meeting, what do you think you can say outside or what's already being public knowledge? Nothing. You can talk about what you have learned about yourself, but you can't say anything about another person in the group. Nobody, which means it's not for you to choose who could be privileged to this information. And often people said, yes, but I have with my spouse an agreement that we talk about everything. That's great. Tell him or her what's going on for you, but don't tell the story of someone else. Someone went into a meeting and says, honey, listening to some of the other people in my group and their marriage, I'm really feeling fortunate. Oh no, You can tell your honey that you're feeling fortunate. You don't need to compare with others or reveal information about anybody else that
I
could
agree.
be known. Sorry?
I agree with what you're saying completely.
I'm happy you're with me on this one. And the third thing is never, which means you move out of the group. You've moved in life, you've moved to another place. You cannot divulge any of that information. Now, conflict is rarely breached by people being mean and being intentional. Like, you just said something and I'm going to use this against you. That is just plain mean and stupid. Usually people are trying to be nice. You come to a social event and, you know, you drink a little bit and then you try and you say nice things about people, only you forgot that what they said was said in a setting that should not be repeated. Now, to the essence of your question, what do you do with children? You need to be very careful and teach slowly and understand that kids at a young age sometimes don't know how to keep something. Let's differentiate by being mean and saying something to people, to other friends about your brother or sister, that is something that we definitely want to teach the kids. Don't break the unity of the family. Don't break who we are as a group. We are one as a family, right? So remember The Godfather, where he's arguing with his father in front of the competition, and that's the end of the family. We don't fight with the outside world. Inside, we can fight. We don't badmouth someone from outside the family. That's a very important teaching for kids, to know that they have your back. You know, you remember the cowboy movies where the wagons were all in a circle when they're under attack. What does that mean? I watch your back. In a family, like in a forum, we watch each other's back. You do not reveal things. Now, kids sometimes, when they're very young, they don't know, so they say things. So we need to be careful to remind them again and again what was said right now cannot be repeated and why. What could be the collateral damage if you did repeat that?
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, over time, everybody reveals things. So we hold, it goes with a joke, not so, maybe not so appropriate, but still it makes the point, so I apologize up front. This person goes to the dentist, and just before the dentist starts to drill, he grabs him in a very painful place and says, we're not going to hurt each other, are we? What does this mean? We are all in this together. We're not going to hurt each other, right? And then, last, Laura, there are certain things that the parents might not say to the kids. Let's say that we have issues with our sex life. Do we need to say it to a 6-year-old? No. Not everything needs to be shared with the kids. So we apply judgment. But we are able to say to them, you know, if I'm going bankrupt and the kids are going to be terrified by that and they're not going to sleep at night because they can't hold that complexity in their mind, I need to apply judgment. But I think it's very valuable for the parents to come and say, I have an issue. I have a conflict with somebody that I'm working with, and it's very hard for me, and I don't really know how to manage it. And you know what? An 8-year-old or a 6-year-old also has a conflict with somebody in the kindergarten. And they might say something about what they've learned about how to manage that conversation. I remember how you did so well with me to help me figure out how to resolve conflicts. Laura taught me something very powerful, not only me, but I can only speak for myself. She said, tell the other person every day 3 things that you appreciate about them. And just by thinking every day for a week about 3 things that I appreciate about this person, change my relationship with this person like never again. Any other questions? I don't even know what's the time. How much are we talking? How much do we have? As far as I'm concerned, I can stand here and have this conversation because I'm very passionate for you to do this. So here's 2 more things before
I like it.
Yes, we're all in. So we have another 20 minutes if anybody can stay. So
Yes.
we can stay.
So this slide is important. You want to do it with your family. It's called a retreat. You don't have to fly to Bali to do this. You can do it in the backyard, put tent and have a conversation with a candle that will be an imaginary fireplace. And talk about some deeper things that aren't just about resolving the pain of today and the issue of tomorrow. Talk about things like, what is our reason for being as a family? What is really the why of our family? as Simon Singh says. What is our vision? In 10, 20, 15 years, 20 years from now, what will our family look like? The relationship with grandparents. Where would we want to have our summer house maybe? What will our vacations look like? What is our mission? What are the things that we want to do that will make an impact in this world? My dear ladies, you are in an organization that is about making a difference in this world. If you've noticed in the introspection, there's also impact. Me, friends, family, school or work, and impact. We train our kids to think from a young age about making an impact. What are the core values that drive? Values are things that we don't compromise, right? We say the truth. Or as one of my clients in Greece, Takis Gerolimatos, may his soul rest in peace, when I talked about values, he says, Amir, please, not again all these big words. I said, Takis, what is your guiding principle? He says, we keep our promise. And that is a value. And we want to work with our kids to talk about values. We want to talk about the rituals of the family. How do we celebrate birthdays? What do we do when we go on vacation? How do we, all sorts of family rituals. What do we do? How do we do them together? I work with a family business that has celebrated 65 years, McElroy from Tulsa. And they talked about the rituals of the family. How do we celebrate central events in the life of the company that we're all co-owners? Alignment, family rules. Who's doing what? Chores in the family, the goals for the bucket list. What are the things that we are dying to do? You know, I believe we should do a safari in Africa. That should be one of our, by the way, I recommend that very much. That was the most amazing vacation we had with the kids. Some of you already have grandchildren maybe, so you want to do it with them. There's nothing more powerful than spending a week in a Jeep from 5 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock at night, where there's no phones working, no TV, and everybody's looking at the same thing and connecting in an incredible way by being part of nature and being present. Giving each other feedback of appreciation. And by the way, you're going to get this PowerPoint, so you'll have everything. You don't need to worry about that. What is the thing that I admire about you? We go around and we share with this, each other. What is the song for the family? Any one of those things, including love languages, are great things to do. What is the call for action, my friends? 1, start a forum in your family. How can you do this? Use the tools that we're going to give you and use the videos that we have. Because it's Corona time and because we really want to be associated with what you're doing, we'll allow you to use this for a period so that you can use these tools and you can try it with your family. Some of you are experienced enough, some of the people here in the group are able to do this and to deploy it with their families. In some cases, you might need someone from the outside that will help you run the first, second meeting, maybe to be in your ear to give you some insight on how to run the process. But I need you to feel empowered to do this. Sometimes it's important that you have an outsider because when you're doing it on your own, the kids are saying, as in my cats, Dad, come on. It's hard for dad with his own kids to get them to game into this structure. Sometimes an outsider, if they're young, they're very playful. And you need to make it playful. We have the interactive meeting flow, the manual, and the forum workbook that we created, including a manual for parents how to run this thing. So for some of you in YPO, you realize I am very determined to make sure, as my agenda has been for a few years, that everybody deserves to have a forum in their life. I really believe that's true. Everybody deserves to have a forum. When my father was in an old age house, I thought that they had no meaningful conversation. I would have loved them to have a protocol that they go up and instead of playing bingo, talking. These are mature, intelligent people that need to have a conversation. There's no protocol for that. The kids need to have such a protocol. We need to do it with our family because they will do it with their kids. And you know what? They'll call you in as the grandparent to come into the family conversation because that is a ritual that you've established in your family. We will be happy to virtually facilitate your first meeting and to be there for you. We don't need to be physically. The beauty is that from a distance, we can do this and give you whatever confidence you need to be able to do it on your own. This is very important. C'est ça.
Okay. So, any other questions? I think it's really a wonderful tool for everybody, and thank you for staying so long on this call. Because Amir, what you have shared is it can really create deep change in a society. Starting in a family, and generally when a family is happy and well communicated, it's transported, and then members of other in the community want to emulate that, and you say, oh, use family forum, and then it just trickles to communities, to a country. You know, I'm a believer that beautiful things post coronavirus are all possible.